Good morning from Indiana Dunes National Park. We are at Mount Baldy. Back here behind us, tallest dune in the park. Closed most of the time, but we're here for a ranger-led hike going to take us up on Mount Baldy. So let's get started.
I'm going to start off with a couple questions, and some of you who have been here before will have an easier time answering this, I think. But what am I standing on right now?
Sand.
Road.
Sand? Road. Okay, got the answer right off the bat. Sometimes that doesn't happen. So I'm standing on road, and you may have heard before in the visitor center or just being around town that Mount Baldy is a moving dune or a living dune, moves 7 to 10 feet per year. So where I'm standing right now is road, and it was road just last summer. So when I would do this hike last summer, I was standing on the road that you could come around the parking lot and drive around this way, and that gate was open. So that's how much Mount Baldy has moved in just 1 year, which is crazy to think about. And there are lots of different reasons for Mount Baldy's movement. We're going to go over almost all of those today. Does anyone have any ideas why Mount Baldy moves so much?
Wind.
Wind. Perfect. You guys are smart. Okay, this is going to be an awesome hike. You guys are going to make it really easy. So wind. Mount Baldy is what's called a parabolic dune, and when we head back over this way, I'll show you some models so you know what that looks like. If anybody remembers math class, a parabola is like that U shape. So Mount Baldy has a U shape, but it didn't used to. So a normal dune, if you think about like the Sahara Desert or something like that, has rolling dunes like this. And the wind blows the sand up and it falls to the other side just like that, and that's completely normal. Mount Baldy used to be like that. Mount Baldy is on top of a previously established dune that's about 3,500 years old. So that dune did look like one of these rolling dunes, or a transverse dune. If I say that, transverse dune is a normal dune. Mount Baldy shifted with strong winds into a parabolic dune. So it's got that U shape in the outward, the middle part of the U is what we're looking at right now. So when it moves, the bottom of the U is headed out towards the parking lot. Now if you think about it, moving that much, 7 to 10 feet in 1 year, it's going to eventually get out to Highway 12. At that point, it is out of park jurisdiction, so really what the town does is up to them. But Mount Baldy is not projected to stop moving at any point in the near future. And one of the things that attributes to Mount Baldy's movement is its angle of repose, right over here. So this is called the slip face of the dune, this side, and Mount Baldy stays at the exact same angle all the time, right here. And that is an angle of 34 degrees. That's its angle of repose. You could bring a protractor out here and it would always be 34 degrees. Because of that, and we don't even know why it's 34 degrees, it's just some math in Mother Nature, but it always has to stay at that. So because of that angle, sand cannot pile up indefinitely at the top of Mount Baldy. It has to fall to the other side. So that continues its movement. We see a lot of strong winds off of Lake Michigan. The strongest winds here are in the winter season, which we'll talk about a little bit more later. But that's one of the reasons for its movement is the angle of repose. When we get on top, I'll talk about the Michigan City Pier, if anyone has been to that, and also erosion, as those are some of the other causes for its movement. And some of you may have heard something that happened on Mount Baldy in 2013. I'm seeing a lot of head nods. That's one of the reasons for its closure. It was closed before then, but we had an accident on top of Mount Baldy. So in 2013, a little boy named Nathan fell into a hole on top of Mount Baldy. And I'll start off this story for those of you that don't know. He's perfectly fine. He's probably 16 or 17 years old now, and he's visited again. So he wasn't too traumatized, but it was a really horrible experience in the park. Nathan was on top of Mount Baldy with his father, his father's friend, and his son. And they were on the summit just walking around exploring, and he disappeared immediately. He just fell into a hole. And so a lot of rescuers came out to try to find him. He was 11 feet deep for 5 hours in the sand, if you can imagine. So that hole is something we rangers call a decomposition chimney. So when Mount Baldy moves, because it moves so much, it covers every single thing in its path. So you can imagine, you can see some trees sticking out over here. trees are covered when Mount Baldy moves, and they will eventually rot and decompose because they have a lack of oxygen being covered by the sand. When they decompose, they rot from the inside out, especially due to a fungus that black oak trees have. So when they do that, it creates almost a chute underneath the sand because the bark is the last thing that remains. Because of the fungus some of these oak trees have, it left sort of a mold in the sand of where those trees were. You're not able to see them because sand blows over the top of Mount Baldy and down to the other side. So Nathan unfortunately fell into one of those. He was rescued by NIPSCO, which is the power company for most of Northwest Indiana, if you're unfamiliar. They came to his rescue, but someone else important was on top of Mount Baldy that day, and that was Dr. Erin Argelon. She's a geologist from Indiana University Northwest that works thoroughly with our park here. She was doing some research on top of Mount Baldy about wind patterns that day. But she was right there when Nathan fell into the hole and was able to call the authorities and get him rescued, except she was 8 months pregnant when she was on top of Baldy, so that made it a lot harder for her, I'm imagining. But as you can picture, it was a very emotional experience for everyone involved, so that sparked her research more of Mount Baldy. We conduct so much research every single year. I'll talk about that a little bit more as we go up, but that is the reason for this ranger guided tour. So if that can be my little scared straight moment, do not go on the top of Mount Baldy without me or somebody who looks like me. And these people you might see, bunch of footsteps, $300 ticket. So this is where we will head up. This was the original trail at Mount Baldy, but it used to come from the parking lot. So if you saw those pavilions and picnic tables to the left of where we were standing, that's around where the original trail started. So this is the part where Roads and Trails no longer maintains it because it's not an official trail. However, we do use this a couple times a week. But I will just say that this is where you might encounter some poison ivy, so if you can, going single file might not be a bad idea. I'll point out some plants on our way up too. One of the main ones I like to talk about is Oriental Bittersweet. It's right over here actually. You're going to see a ton of this as you walk up. Is anyone familiar with this plant or have it in your yard? Anyone who lives around here might. So this is probably the most invasive plant species in our national park. It takes away from every other plant that's over here, so we do pull for it in trails and other parts of the park that are maintained. We no longer do it here because this isn't in use regularly anymore. Well, regularly, but they don't want to do that. What is interesting is the Indiana Dunes is the 4th most biodiverse national park in America in terms of plant life. So we do have millions of different species out here. Oriental Bittersweet is the most invasive here. Following it are probably garlic mustard and Phragmites, which is a wetland plant if you're familiar with any of those. So what we're looking at up here, we're on the left arm of Mount Baldy, so to speak. So this is the U shape. The U is the bald part right over there, and we are right here. And eventually we'll be up there when we go over there. But all on the top of Mount Baldy is something called marram grass. It's what's over here on the sides of you everywhere. Marram grass is super important for all dune ecosystems because it's what holds dunes together. Marram grass has a root system similar to trees. They reach about 25 feet deep underneath the sand and connect with each other. And when you step on it, even just once or twice, that root system is disconnected from the one individual plant of marram grass. So it is crucial to the area over here, and it's okay if you do. Don't beat yourself up too much about it. It's just I like to let you know. So marram grass is all over Mount Baldy, all over the rest of the Indiana dunes. It has been brought in to Mount Baldy too to try to stabilize the dunes. So you'll see, and we'll be moving locations so you'll have a better visual of what I'm talking about. But Mount Baldy, it is still bald on the top. That's where the decomposition chimneys are. But on the bottom, the lake side of the slope, you'll see a bunch of vegetation. That wasn't there even 10 years ago, which is a really good sign for Mount Baldy that it's able to grow life near the bottom again. And then some marram grass has been brought to the top of Mount Baldy in the middle, where you'll see that. That's been brought in by the park, but it's not likely to keep growing in that area because so much sand falls over the other side of Mount Baldy, so it kind of smothers the grass.
We are on top of Mount Baldy on the left arm, overlooking Lake Michigan. Back here behind us, lighthouse out on the point over here, Michigan City Pier. We are here on top of Mount Baldy on the ranger-led hike. This area is closed now, but since before 2013, I believe. But they do ranger-led hikes up here a time or two a week during the season, bring you up. So it's the only way that you can legally come up here without getting fined. Got the large area of the bog here behind us, and it's in a U shape, constantly moving, as you heard earlier. 7 to 10 feet a year moving. It's already taken over part of the parking lot, so absolutely blessed to be able to be here on a time when we can take this hike out here and get the information on it and enjoy a beautiful day. So if you get an opportunity, definitely Indiana Dunes National Park here, take the ranger-led hike up to Mount Baldy.
All right, can everybody hear me back there? Okay, awesome, thank you. So this is another great photo spot, but it also gives me a chance to talk about the geology of Mount Baldy. I'm gonna ask you guys to look out towards the tree line and tell me if you see a blue looking ridge that almost looks like mountains. Okay, so that is the Valparaiso moraine. Anybody know what a moraine is? Also probably from geology class. Yes, glacier. So it has to do with glaciers. A moraine is the end point of a glacier where it deposits all of its sediment that it picked up on its way. So where we are standing right now did not exist 20,000 years ago. It was covered by an ice sheet half a mile thick. That was called the Laurentide ice sheet during the last glacial maximum. When the Laurentide ice sheet melted, it created ancestral Lake Michigan. It created all the dunes we see here, all of the wetlands, and all of the little lakes too. So that is what formed northwest Indiana. And the Valparaiso moraine is where the glacier stopped and deposited sediment or till. When glaciers move, retreat back and forth, they have little phases, so they'll come back and forth and back and forth. And then eventually the Laurentide ice sheet stopped out in Valparaiso, and that's where it deposited its till. So if you're familiar with the area, the highest point of the moraine is by Rogers Lakewood Park in Valparaiso. So if you're driving there, you'll notice it's really hilly. That's because it's the moraine. And that's called an end moraine because that's as far as the Laurentide ice sheet went. And then you can see out here, there are some water towers behind the phone lines. Just 5 years ago, you could not see those from where we're standing because Mount Baldy has moved so much. So as it moves inward, it's losing height. And I talked about earlier, the vegetation on the lakeside of Mount Baldy. This is great. This is what I'm talking about over here. All of this has been able to regrow and stabilize. And then on the top of Mount Baldy, on the bald part, the park has brought in some of this marram grass, and it's not likely to expand anymore or grow anymore because too much sand comes and smothers it.